Hey there, I'm Melanie and I'm your Design Journey art class expert for watercolor pencils and colored pencils. In this session, I'm going to use pastel pencils, graphite watercolor pencils, as well as full watercolor pencils. I'm gonna compare them all and show you the different effects that you can get with those different materials. In this session, we need full watercolor pencils, tinted watercolor pencils, and pastel pencils. I'm also going to use watercolor paper. This one is a little bit more rough compared to the others that I've used before. And I'm also going to use the synthetic brushes, preferably the size 8 round brush. We're also going to need a cup of water and a little tissue in case we have any mistakes that need fixing. So for our first piece, we are going to use those graphite watercolor pencils, and they are special because the tint of them changes once you add water to them. When you first use it, it looks like this. It is a very desaturated green tone, and as soon as you blend it with some water, it becomes a little bit more vibrant. So to get started, I'm gonna use this green tone and I'm just gonna frame our little picture. And now I'm just gonna roughly map out where everything is going to be. These are rocks with a lot of moss on them, so they have this brown green color that's very textured, and everything that I'm leaving white now is going to be water. Now I'm gonna use a dark brown tone. I'm just checking the color that it's going to have. Now I'm gonna add even more shadows to all the rock areas. I leave some parts white here because there's going to be water. So now that I'm done with coloring all of that in, I'm gonna blend all of that and we're gonna see the magic happening. Because once we blend that, we have so much more color here. It's so much darker and it starts to look really cool. So now that I'm done blending all of that, I'm gonna start adding the water, and at first I'm just gonna pick the colors that I want for the water. Probably gonna use that for some additional shading. So at first I'm gonna start off with the lightest blue tone in the set, and I'm just gonna color in the waves and the waterfalls. You can really see how vibrant the colors are now. They are super versatile because you can use those colored pencils for a lot of shadows and textures as they are very tinted and dulled down, but you can also make them vibrant with just a little bit of water. Now that I've got it all blended and it's dry, I'm gonna add in more details with the colored pencils. So now I'm done adding in all the details with one of the colored pencils, and you can see that we have these lovely natural tones here. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I'm now gonna move on to the next piece with different art supplies. So in this section I'm gonna use the full watercolor pencils, and I'm gonna start off with this tone and just sketch where I want my piece to be, like I did before. Since this is the lightest tone other than the yellow, I'm just gonna start with that. And this is like a sunset sky. And you can use them very tilted like that because they don't have any wood on there, so you can just cover bigger areas, mixing in a little bit of the yellow in the lightest areas. I'm being a little bit more careful with the orange because it's very pigmented, so I'm pressing very lightly right now. Now for the pink tone. I'm actually gonna drag the pink way down here and the purple tone to darken all of these areas a little bit. Make sure that you only go over the pink tones with the purple and over the areas that are still white, because if you mix the yellow or the orange with the purple, it's gonna look very muddy and ugly. And now I'm also adding in a little bit of blue in those areas, again trying not to touch the yellow and orange parts too much. Down here is going to be water, so I'm going to start with this lightest tone here as well, and gonna make a little bit of a reflection of all that we have going on up there. So now I'm gonna blend all of that, and I'm gonna start with the lighter areas and make sure not to drag the pigment of the blue and the purple into the yellow and orange areas. And if you add too much water or you see the pigment spreading in a way that you don't want to, just remove the water from your brush and use the dry brush to remove all of that. So now all of that is blended, and I think that it still needs a little bit of pink, and I want to blend that right into the first layer. So I'm just gonna use the watercolor pencil just like I would use watercolors, and I'm carefully going to just dip my brush, my wet brush on here, and take a little bit of the pigment, and you can just use it like regular watercolors, and then add a little bit more pink. And I'm using it a little bit more like I would use normal watercolors. So now I'm gonna let everything, including those, dry. I'm using my black color, and I'm drawing a very simple skyline. I'm just pressing down really hard this time because I want it to be super dark. So now that that's done, I'm actually gonna use the smallest brush, the size 2 round brush, and I'm gonna blend all of that very carefully. And you can see that we get this super solid black tone. I also sharpened the colors that we were previously using, and now I'm gonna use those just to add in some more definition. I'm pretty happy with how that looks, and now all there's left is to wait for this to dry, and then our piece is finished. So for this piece, you're going to need a textured paper. I'm actually using the same watercolor paper that I use for the other pieces as well, just because I want to compare all of these materials on the same paper, and it has a nice texture, and so it's awesome for this project as well. You can use any kind of textured paper with pastel pencils. So here I'm gonna start off with a light blue tone again, and again I'm just mapping where I want my frame to be, and I'm gonna start with the sky. I'm just going horizontally. I'm doing horizontal lines and like this, and I'm gonna leave the clouds blank, actually go around those. We're also gonna have a little balloon here, so I'm gonna leave that part as well and just color around that. Now I'm gonna use a darker blue tone to create a little gradient. I'm also using the black tone just to darken up the sky a little bit more. Now I'm gonna use one of those blending stamps, and I'm gonna blend all of that, just going over it. So you can see that the lines are still a little bit visible. That's why I went horizontally. I actually don't mind those. I think that they look cool and they add a little bit to the entire piece. I'm just now blending in the sky a little bit to the clouds. Now I'm gonna use the darker orange tone in the set, and I'm gonna start to draw some flowers here. Even more flowers, adding a little bit of a shadow to the ones we already have. And now I'm also gonna pick a yellow tone because we also have yellow flowers in our little field. And I'm using the lighter orange tone to add a little bit of shadows to those. Now I'm using the smallest blending stamp to really blend all of them. And they're gonna be super soft and blurry because they're not in focus. So it actually works really nice with this medium. Now I'm using the darker green tone to add all of the green parts, and I'm also blending in a little bit of the blue here. And here I'm doing vertical lines because that's the direction that the plants grow in. And now I'm blending all of it. I'm now trying to add in a few details. using the darker red tone, just adding in a few lines. Also gonna add a little bit of white so that all of that can blend very nicely together. I'm pressing down really hard with that one. Now I'm gonna use the dark blue color to add in some stems and leaves, just a little bit of texture to the green areas. I'm gonna blend all the leaves just a little bit. And now I'm gonna draw our little balloon. And that was the last step. Now I'm done with this piece. It might seem a little bit hard to find the right medium for you, but I treat it like an experiment. Maybe even create the same landscape with different materials if you're curious. You don't have to like every single medium. I'm sure you'll find your favorite ones. When you're thinking about which one of those you want to use, just consider the kind of style that you're going for and get started to create something now. We'd love to see your results. Share them on Instagram using the hashtag #MyDesignJourney. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this design journey art class.